Hey everyone, have you ever wondered why we even sleep? Why do we need to shut down every night like an old computer that needs a reboot? And most importantly, why is it so hard to get it right? Today, we're diving into the essence of sleep. We'll find out how your brain decides. All right, it's bedtime, why the cells in your body know what time it is, and why early birds can't understand night owls. We'll also talk about your biological clocks and why every Monday after the weekend feels like you've crossed 3 time zones. Ready to uncover everything that happens to us at night? Then get comfortable. Let's begin. This is a neuron, the primary cell of your nervous system, and your body contains an incredible number of them, hundreds of billions. These cells communicate with each other through electrical impulses that travel at an astonishing speed of up to 120 meters per second. To put that in perspective, that's about the speed of a paintball shot from a marker. Thanks to the lightning-fast transmission of nerve signals, your brain processes sensations, smells, and images almost instantly. For example, when you touch something hot, your brain immediately receives a signal from the receptors and commands your muscles to pull your hand away. The speed of signals between neurons depends on positively charged sodium ions, which cells exchange with one another. The more ions enter the cell, the faster and more actively the electrical impulse spreads, like a chain reaction of falling dominoes. However, if neurons accumulate more negatively charged chloride ions, the signal weakens. This is comparable to a slow internet connection. It works, but everything lags, and your reactions become less sharp. When we fall asleep, many areas of our brain deactivate and electrical currents stop flowing through them. But not all areas shut down. Only large regions responsible for awareness, thinking, and interaction with the external world. It's similar to a phone entering power-saving mode. Not everything shuts down, but the system starts working much more efficiently. So, where exactly is the place in the brain that decides when it's time for us to sleep? To begin, imagine a constant battle happening in your brain between two powerful chemical forces, neurotransmitters. The winner of this battle determines whether you're bursting with energy like a squirrel or shutting down in a sleep mode, unable to lift a finger. This process represents the first level of control over what happens to us. The first force works to keep us alert and ready for action. Let's call it the wakefulness team. The second force, in contrast, aims to calm us down and guide us into the world of dreams. We'll call it the relaxation team. The wakefulness team includes substances like serotonin and dopamine. These chemicals not only give us a sense of accomplishment and excitement, but also actively stimulate the brain, helping neurons work faster. They essentially power up the brain by filling it with sodium, signaling the body to act. Thanks to them, we can move, think, and function. Without serotonin, we wouldn't even be able to stay on our feet. The relaxation team, on the other hand, relies on gamma-aminobutyric acid, also known as GABA. This molecule acts as a brake on the wakefulness team, gradually reducing its activity. The area where GABA is produced is located at the intersection of the optic nerves. It's here in the very center of the brain where the decision to relax and fall asleep is made. You've likely experienced the sensation of suddenly jolting awake as you're falling asleep, as if you were plummeting. That's the moment when the relaxation team has partially won. Your brain switches off the part responsible for spatial awareness, and suddenly it decides you're falling. The wakefulness team then kicks in with a reflex to restore balance and prevent the perceived fall. This mechanism likely evolved in our primate ancestors to help them wake instantly if they started falling from a tree. Even though we've long swapped trees for beds, this ancient reflex still lingers within us. So, we've located the part of the brain responsible for activating sleep. Now let's figure out what triggers it. To trigger the sleep mechanism, 2 events need to happen simultaneously. First, our cells must be sufficiently tired. Second, our brain must receive a signal from our biological clock. Here's how these 2 processes work. By evening, our cells accumulate adenosine, a chemical responsible for feelings of fatigue. This buildup signals the body that it's time to rest and clear out cellular waste. Meanwhile, Our biological clock keeps us alert up until this point. When the fatigue signal peaks and the alertness signal begins to fade, the sleep trigger activates. It's at this precise moment that we start to feel an irresistible pull towards sleep, making it the easiest time to fall asleep. Let's now figure out what biological clocks are and how they work. Biological clocks are internal mechanisms that synchronize all processes in the body with the day-night cycle. They determine when we should be awake or resting, eating or sleeping. While these clocks are embedded in every cell of our body, the primary control system resides in a small group of neurons in the brain. The central timekeeper of our body is located in the hypothalamus, in a tiny brain region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN. This cluster of about 20,000 neurons sits directly above the optic nerves. It receives signals from the eyes about whether it's light or dark, helping the brain adapt to changes in the external environment. The SCN oversees another key component of the biological clock, the pineal gland, located in the very center of the brain. This small gland performs a critical function, producing melatonin, the hormone that regulates our sleep-wake cycle. The process is both simple and effective. As long as the retina detects light, the pineal gland remains inactive and doesn't produce melatonin. But as darkness falls and light signals fade, melatonin production kicks in, preparing the body for sleep. But what happens when there's no light signal? People with vision loss often have biological clocks that fall out of sync with the 24-hour cycle. They may develop a rare condition known as non-24-hour sleep-wake syndrome, where their schedule constantly shifts. They feel sleepy during the day and struggle with insomnia at night. Interestingly, animals like fish, lizards, and frogs avoid this issue altogether. They possess a separate eye beneath their skin that detects changes in light and dark. For example, iguanas use this hidden organ not only to regulate sleep, but also to detect threats that block light. Here's an interesting example of how biological clocks affect us. You might have noticed how after staying up all night, sleepiness vanishes as dawn approaches. This happens because our internal biological clocks are set to wake us at specific times, regardless of when we fall asleep. This universal process is a legacy of millions of years of evolution, maintaining life's rhythms across a vast range of creatures, from humans to lizards. Do you know why coffee makes us feel more awake and helps disable the sleep trigger? To understand this, we need to delve into the root cause of our cells' fatigue. Our body gets energy from a molecule called ADP, which is produced in cells. However, when ADP is used up, a byproduct called adenosine accumulates on the receptors of our cells and causes fatigue. Adenosine affects the brain by suppressing its activity. But here's the clever part. Caffeine can occupy the same receptors as adenosine, blocking it from making us feel tired. If caffeine gets there first, adenosine has no place to bind, and it's essentially benched. As a result, less adenosine attaches to cell receptors, and the body feels more awake. But have you ever had this happen? You drink coffee to wake up, only to feel sleepier instead. I've been there too. The reason is simple. We're not drinking coffee the right way. Let me explain how to do it properly. The secret to staying energized after coffee is sometimes you need to nap. Yes, it sounds counterintuitive, but this is called a coffee nap. Let me break it down. If you drink a cup of coffee and take a 20-minute nap, some of the adenosine will clear from your receptors during that time. When caffeine kicks in after those same 20 minutes, it will occupy more free receptors. The result? Fatigue has nowhere to sit. But here's the trick. It's important not to sleep longer than 20 minutes, or you risk entering deep sleep, which will leave you feeling groggier instead of refreshed. Another factor that affects our sleep is circadian rhythms. These are natural biological cycles that regulate our activity throughout the day. These rhythms are controlled by our internal clocks, which govern various processes in the body. Circadian rhythms essentially represent the timeline those clocks count out for us, determining when it's best to be awake and when to rest. These rhythms regulate numerous functions, including concentration, hormone production, digestion, and even body temperature. Thanks to these cycles, our body chooses the optimal times for sleep and wakefulness. Circadian rhythms are closely tied to the concept of chronotypes, our built-in settings for activity. People are often categorized as early birds, active in the morning, night owls, active in the evening, and hummingbirds, who can be active at any time of the day. Adjusting your schedule by just a couple of hours to align with your chronotype can significantly boost your productivity. Don't forget to mention this to your boss the next time you're late for work. Here's an interesting fact. While chronotypes often dictate our preferences in youth, they shift as we age. At the age of 20, especially among men, the night owl activity type is most prominent, with the midpoint of their sleep typically around 5 a.m. However, after age 50, most people naturally shift into becoming early birds. This is why your grandparents can be up and energized at 5 a.m. without a problem. Even more fascinating is that your chronotype isn't just controlled by your brain, it's encoded in every cell of your body. These rhythms form a deeply embedded system that governs the entire body, adapting to external conditions to keep everything in sync. Every cell in your body has a pair of genes responsible for its own internal clock. These genes regulate the production of two proteins that remain active in the cell environment for a limited time. Once their work is done, the same genes shut them down, completing the cycle. This process repeats over and over, with one full cycle taking exactly 24 hours. Remarkably, these cellular clocks continue to function even when a cell is isolated from the body. For example, skin cells placed in a nutrient solution keep flickering in alignment with their circadian rhythms. An interesting experiment revealed that the cells of people with different chronotypes, night owls and early birds, function differently as well. Their activity patterns match the rhythms of the body they belong to. Every cell in your body, from your liver to your skin, knows what time it is according to its internal schedule. These rhythms are so precise that they affect your physiology. For example, if you eat a donut in the morning, your body will efficiently process the sugar because your digestive system is primed for activity. However, that same donut in the evening will likely turn into fat, as your liver will already be in rest mode. These internal clocks are an evolutionary legacy of a world where life was closely tied to the 24-hour cycle of light and darkness. The sun dictated the rhythms of all organisms, plants, animals, and humans alike. However, if we ever venture to Mars, we'll face a significant challenge in adapting. A Martian day, or sol, is 40 minutes longer than an Earth day. At first glance, it might seem like a minor difference, but over the course of a month on Mars, those extra minutes would add up to an entire additional day. Even on Earth, the length of the daylight hours can shift for us by several hours when we're flying across multiple time zones. This results in a state of discomfort known as jet lag, which occurs due to the desynchronization of our internal biological clocks with a new local time. However, in certain cases, jet lag is easier to handle. Traveling westward rather than eastward can help. When you fly west, your day is extended, which is easier to adjust to than trying to shorten your day as you would when flying east. For example, studies have shown that baseball players traveling east tend to lose by one more point in away games. You might say, I don't fly that often, I can handle jet lag, but in reality, many of us experience its equivalent every week. This is called social jet lag. Social jet lag occurs when your natural biological rhythms conflict with the schedule imposed by society. Sound familiar? On weekends, you sleep in longer to catch up on the sleep you missed during the work week, only to wake up to an alarm on Monday morning before sunrise. For your body, it's like switching time zones every week. In winter, the situation becomes even more challenging. Waking up early in the morning when it's dark and cold outside becomes a real test. Your brain is in a state of dissonance. It's dark, so it thinks it's time to sleep, but you force it to wake up and get to work. For those who struggle more with the winter darkness and face seasonal depression, doctors recommend light therapy. The idea is simple. In the morning, you spend 30 minutes in front of a special light with a brightness of 10,000 lux to make up for the lack of sunlight and reset your internal clock. But why did nature create chronotypes? At first glance, it might seem like nature invented chronotypes just to complicate our lives. But that's not the case. Nature doesn't have ill intentions or a master plan, but there's an interesting explanation: the hypothesis of evolutionary timing. According to this hypothesis, the division of sleep schedules among animals and early humans arose as a survival strategy. If everyone slept at the same time, the group would be vulnerable to predators or other dangers. So, some became active at night, while others were active during the day. This principle is still observed in animals today, such as birds, rodents, and meerkats, and it likely applied to our ancestors as well. Researchers studied a tribe in Tanzania that lives much like humans did thousands of years ago. They gave the tribe members devices to track their sleep and observe their activity cycles for some time. It turned out that over 20 days of observation, the villagers slept at the same time for only 18 minutes. The rest of the time, someone was always awake. So, if you're a night owl or an early bird, it's not just your body being picky. It's a legacy of ancient times when such differences could have saved lives. But a lot has changed since then. When humans left Africa and began settling in new territories, their rhythms started adapting to different environments. Over time, habits and surroundings began to influence how we perceive the time of day. So, we've explored the fascinating world of sleep. From the chemistry that makes us fall asleep to the biological clocks that set the rhythm of our lives. But this is just the first part of our journey. In the second part, we'll talk about how evolution has changed our sleep habits, why sleep stages are important, and why sleep is crucial for our health. We'll also dive into the world of dreams, uncover their meaning, discuss lucid dreaming, and touch on sleep disorders. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, share it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation. Sleep isn't just rest, it's a whole universe, and we're just beginning to explore it. Thanks for being with me, and I'll see you soon in part 2.